Okay, I'm reacting to the video why libertarians are wrong about government. I think this is from a podcast called like Actualized. It just says Actualized clips. So I assume it's just clips from their show. Uh, yeah, you can find the entire video that I'm reacting to in the description, but I'll be reacting to the whole thing, so you're not gonna be like missing anything. But if you want it to be interrupted, you can find it there. Here we go. Yeah, see the clip from a show.
Here's what libertarians fundamentally misunderstand about free markets.
Nothing.
Free markets inherently become corrupt because the people who are constituting the market are themselves corrupt. And so that corruption will spill over into the free market. If you have a market with a lot of distributed individuals, what's going to inevitably happen is that those individuals will clump together and coordinate and cooperate to create corporations, tribes, groups, syndicates, cabals, and mafias. Why do they do that? Because that allows them, first of all, they have the free.
So I'm gonna stop there. Man by his very nature is corrupt. People are inherently corrupt. Now, that's his first premise that leads on to why the free market will naturally be corrupt. There's a whole list of things that are wrong with this, but his starting premise is trash. Um, People are corrupt. Well, corruption is it's a moral thing. You're saying, hey, you, you it's a good thing, but it's been mixed, melded, right? You're saying it's good, but this immorality has corrupted it. What's what you mean by saying it's corrupt. Is it is otherwise good, but it's been compromised in some way due to the people who are enacting it. Well, okay. Number one, it's just factually not the case that people are naturally corrupt. What's his justification behind this? I don't know. And this is an isolated clip, so maybe he's justified it elsewhere. But uh, the usual justification is like, well, in the Bible, it's we're all tainted by Adam's transgression. He messed up, and so we're all evil because of it. Whatever. We're all tainted by his sin, and it's only through God's grace that we're saved. Now, that viewpoint is already just totally insane because if people can't inherently be evil or be corrupt or sinful, because these are moral terms, if you are necessarily a certain way, well, then you can't apply moral criteria to that because that you have to do it, right? It's like, oh, that lion, it's really messed up for him to go and chase down that gazelle. It's like he has to. Like it's by his very nature. He doesn't consider. He's not sitting around going, "Oh man, should I get the gazelle or not? I guess I'll go do it." No, he's compelled to do it automatically. Um, Man, on the other hand, has free will. He has the ability to choose, and thus is neither inherently good or evil. He's whatever he chooses to be. Right now, maybe a majority of people choose to be bad. It certainly seems that way to me, but it's still completely up to you. Each individual person has free will and has the ability to evade the facts of reality or integrate them into their idea of the world and act based on that. So that starting premise is already trash and embarrassing. But then moving on from there, he makes the jump that so the free market will be super corrupt. Now, certainly, if people are naturally corrupt, which is, like I said, stupid, but still, if people are naturally corrupt, then yeah, it only stands that any society, including the free market, would be corrupt. But it's not like if you have a government, it's not going to be corrupt, because that's going to be. I assume he'll bring it up later. That's the two things that he's comparing is between a society with a government and society without a government. Well, either way, you're gonna have a corrupt society, so it's diddums. It doesn't make a difference. But really, if people are naturally corrupt, if you look at what government is, because the government is a group of people that steal, they plunder from society, and then fund their little pet projects. They'll do their little wars. They gotta bomb kids in foreign countries, because usually that's how they feed themselves more money and power and fame. Uh, okay, so the type of people. So number one, you're taking a subset, these same evil, corrupt people that he thinks society is made up of, and having them rule over us. Like that's going to solve anything. We really need slavery. We really need slavery because people are evil, so we need to enslave them. It's like, well, you don't eliminate evil which I assume is his issue, but you can't have an issue with corruption if corruption is just there, right? It's like having an issue with gravity. It just is what it is. You have to deal with it. So I don't know why he's trying to even minimize corruption by saying we shouldn't live in a total free market anyways, because to him, it's always going to be that way, right? Um, anyways, where was I going with that? Oh, the point is, but it's not just that you're taking a subset of evil people from society. You're taking a subset of people that are attracted to controlling other people, so even more evil. So you're taking, because it's not just like random people that make up the government. It's specifically people that are attracted to positions of controlling other people. So yeah, this idea that, oh no, I'm so worried about corruption, so we need to get, we need to put these corrupt people in charge of us and have them tell us what to do and take our money and control our lives. The argument, if anything, is stronger against his case than mine. But reality, man is neither good nor evil. He has free will, and people who tend to choose government are going to be evil people because government's an evil thing. They steal, right? What is taxation? Taxation is when you take money from people against their will, but you happen to be a government, so it's supposed to be okay. It's not. Every time you ask yourself, is it okay for the government to do something? Ask yourself, would it be okay for you to do that thing? And the answer is always no. Because even when they're doing something legitimate, like protecting someone, with the police, which is very seldom what they do, uh, they're still doing it with, a gun, which is paid for stolen money, a car who's paid for with stolen money, and a salary paid for by stolen money. So it's still unethical, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with eating a sandwich, but if you go out and stole that sandwich, it is wrong for you to eat that sandwich because you got to go return it. Oh, and then the last little thing he was talking about there, and I'll get into this probably more in a second, was like, oh, they're gonna form a mafia, and it's gonna be so horrible. No, that is so funny about the critique of libertarianism. It's like, oh, without a government, it's horrible. We have this group of people that are like stealing and doing all these horrible things that might pop up. So the worst thing that could happen in a free society is for a government to pop up. Well, I really support government because without government, government might pop up and that'd be terrible. It's like, yeah, it is terrible. Why would you support it? it cuts against him just as much as anyone.
Freedom to do it because it's a free market. Second of all, because it allows them to get an advantage in the market.
Let me go back to
Every corporation these days an advantage in the market. Why do they do that? Because that allows them, first of all, they have the freedom to do it because it's a free market. Second of all, because it allows them to get an advantage in the market. Every corporation these days does this. Every corporation tries to game their part of the market to gain some sort of advantage over all the other players in the market. How do they do that? By buying up other companies, coordinating with them, price fixing, and all sorts of other shady stuff that they could do.
Okay. Businesses can do nothing. No matter what they do. It's funny. His face is paused and funny. Whatever businesses can do, they're screwed because if you lower your prices, then you're what's it called? Oh my gosh, you're you're undercutting your competition and you're monopolizing. So that's evil. I forget the term for it. If you keep prices the same, you're price fixing, and that's evil. And then if you higher prices, then you're price gouging. So whatever business can't do anything. Just don't exist, right? Because that's really the critique of businesses. And why is it wrong if businesses are like you have people in charge of businesses and they're trying to take over as much of the market as possible for themselves, so they can make as much money as possible? Why is that bad, right? Like the fact that Walmart has a large market share does not like in any way make my life any worse. It just means they're better at other companies. If these other companies are so good, then they would be doing better. If you provide the best products at the best prices, you're going to naturally do better. I'm so scared of businesses. They're making my life much cheaper by competing with each other and getting rid of the people that are less efficient from the market. Oh, I'm afraid. It's like, instead what I really want is a group of people that are going to steal my money from me and I don't even have a choice where my money goes at all. Which is what government is. So, which is the alternative.
And in fact, if there was less regulation, it doesn't happen today, but if there was less regulation, a corporation could actually hire their own military, a mercenary group, to take out another corporation, and they would gladly do so. You think that
Really? So, yes, we have let's say, how would this even come about? So we have a society that's so devoted to peace that let's say they get rid of all government and say, hey, we're just going to have our defense completely privatized. But by the way, something he doesn't mention is I haven't finished the video, but I assume he doesn't mention this is that there are more private security. Like, what do you mean? Oh, businesses can't hire their own militaries. There are more private security guards in the United States than there are police officers. So I'm not I'm not too worried about it. You know, it's not. It's oh, it's chaos. It's anarchy. You know, because anarchy is just synonymous with chaos, I guess. No, it's not. Right? Why is it that so many people are hiring private security when it's already paid for with the stolen money from their pockets? Because the government security sucks. Anyways, so we have the society that's so free. They're doing so well for themselves, or they believe in freedom so much that they're willing to say, "Hey, let's get rid of government." That's how much these people believe in peace. Is they say, "Hey, taxes are unethical," and then the businesses are all like, "Oh yeah, we're just gonna kill people and we're gonna get whatever we want by just killing your competition." Really? That's gonna come out of a society that believes in peace so much they got rid of taxes? Really? They got rid of regulations on business? Got rid of probably the entire government? Yeah, that's not how that works at all. This only comes from the view. If you people think that what gives the government its power is their guns. No, that's what allows them to do evil things, but not, but only indirectly. What gives government its power is the fact that most of the people say it is. There's a real sense in which every single government, even total dictatorships, are a democracy. They're what I would call like a passive democracy. No, they might not vote on every single issue. In fact, I don't think there's any society that votes on every issue. I mean, the vast majority of people in American government are not elected. They're bureaucrats. They've never seen a ballot. Um, but every society, has to tacitly uh, accept and respect their government, or else they'd go and kill them all, or they'd go and overthrow them, right? So every society doesn't necessarily have to be made up of people who love their government, but it has to be made up of people who are willing to put up with their government. So in the same way, if once you realize that that's what gives the government its power, illegitimate as it may be, you look over at the free market and see businesses. Let's say businesses are going to be in charge of security and protection, because then that way it's privately funded. You fund it based on your specific needs instead of having the money taken for you, and it's just assumed what you need. And clearly, they don't do a good job of meeting it because people hire their private security anyways. Um, but yeah, the businesses aren't going to be going around killing lots of people because that violence imposes a very high cost on a person. That's why most people don't do very much of it. Because you're alerting to everybody else, hey, I'm an irrational animal. I'm going to make your life worse. Now, when you do that, you're sending out a signal to everyone in the area, especially the more rational, the most important people in society, to, hey, this guy's the enemy. We got to go get him. That's what these businesses would be doing. They'd be committing suicide, right? In the same way that the government is only able to do the heinous deeds it does is because people say it's okay. Right? What gives government the ability to steal and murder is the fact that most people say it's okay. But if you live in a society that's rejected that, and then you have these businesses that are providing security, it's a non-issue. The businesses aren't going to be killing each other because you just made yourself enemy number one to everyone. I assume there'll probably be insurance companies that'll be protecting us, right? Like you pay a little insurance fee. Hey, if something happens, and you guys can protect me. You know, they're not going to be going and fighting because that's not how you maximize money. Remember, these people, if you're in a business, your goal is to maximize money. Well, war is very costly, right? That's why nobody engages in war for the most part, except for government and the mafia. And the mafia is only enabled by the government banning drugs, which makes it so they have black markets where they're able to sell drugs. So the only way that you have people having violence be very, very cheap, because that's what you don't. You don't want violence to be cheap because then people are going to go do it. Violence is only very cheap if it's funded by people, regardless of whether they want to, which is what we have with government, right? They're able to commit all these wars, even though they don't help anyone, because the cost is put on the average taxpayer. It's not put on them. But In a free society, there isn't no taxes. Because if business tried to tax people, it'd say, nope, we're not doing that. Because what determines any society is the philosophy of the day, as I've kind of gone over. Anyways, I think I belabored that point enough.
If, for example, Microsoft had the freedom to hire its own militia, that it wouldn't hire one and then go and take out Apple or Google through physical force by just like bombing their headquarters? Of course they would.
Again, the only people that do this are governments, and that's because the people say it's cool. So if listen, every society is determined by the philosophy that the society holds implicitly. Most people aren't aware of the philosophers that influence it. Like, what's an argument I hear all the time? Without government, he's kind of already alluded to this. People will just be fighting, and it'll be horrible and terrible. Okay, now who made that argument? It was a philosopher. It was Thomas Hobbes. He made that point. He said we need a leviathan. We need a beast to protect us, and that's the government, right? The arguments that philosophers make, assuming enough people listen to them, it doesn't have to be very many, as it spreads quickly, is what determines the time. So that's why you have people like me who are going out there saying, no, freedom's good, freedom's good, freedom's good. Free markets are good. Capitalism is good. And you have enough people, you build up a remnant of people, and eventually everybody else who just goes along with the flow, which is the vast majority of people, boom, they convert, you have a free society. So no, there wouldn't be, Microsoft's not going to be just like killing their competition, because Microsoft would be in a society that rejects violence if it really is a libertarian society. Now, there's always going to be exceptions. Surely, people are individuals. It's possible for people to be aggressors. But the vast majority of people just fall in line with whatever is the philosophy of the day. And so the few people that are committing violence, you nip that in the bud real quick. And because it's capitalism, things are far more efficient. Everybody knows free market is efficient.
Of course they would. And the reason they would is because if they didn't, even if they were assuming they were good enough. And
also, why is he arguing like, oh, businesses would do this? What? So governments aren't going to go and do heinous things? Like, oh, we can't have multiple different, companies that have their own militaries because they're all going to be fighting. Then why can't we have multiple militaries on the globe at all? Does this guy really support only one government? I doubt it. I sincerely doubt it.
kind enough and sweet angels that they would that they would be above such barbarity. Well, if they didn't do it, another corporation would. See, out of the thousands of corporations that there are, there's going to be at least a handful that are corrupt enough, that are willing to hire a militia if they're allowed to, and go bomb the headquarters of other corporations. And you know what? That would be a very effective strategy because it's going to work a lot better than building your own company. It's very difficult.
It is not going to be more effective because war is expensive, and it's only made cheap by lying to people and tricking them into believing that you are an authority like government. But of course, we're talking about a society without government. So no.
To build a company like Apple. But you know what's pretty easy? If I have enough money, I could literally just like raise an army of 10,000 people and hire some demolition experts, and we could destroy every campus that Apple has. I mean, easy. So,
yeah, because war is so cheap. Everyone's telling me like, oh yeah, war is just so easy, it's so cheap. It's like, it's only made cheap to specific people, and those specific people are politicians. But the second you remove the belief in politicians and their illegitimate authority, that problem just dissipates. It's gone. Yeah, this is so retarded.
So you see, that's the problem with your free market. That has to be stopped.
Here's your problem with government is you have a whole bunch of governments, and really we only have one government because if you have lots of different governments, they'll be fighting, right? This argument only even makes sense in the context of believing in only one government, which I assume he doesn't. Oh yeah, China and America, and they'll just all combine. It'll be all nice. No, because then people have even less options.
You have to stop groups of people from creating syndicates and mafias which try to.
Oh, you don't want syndicates and mafias? Why do you support them? That's what the government is. It's a mafia with an election every 4 years for its leader. There is zero moral difference. And in fact, mafias themselves are only, like I said earlier, are only able to exist because they thrive on the drug trade, right? Because they keep it underground. Now, why is it kept underground? Because if you buy and sell cocaine out in the open, the government will come and put you in a cage. So, uh, if that if the mafia is your issue, don't support a giant mafia called the government, and also don't support the government which enables the mafia in the first place. So no, you don't hate the mafia. You don't hate syndicates. You're in love with them. You're defending them. So no, that is stupid.
Abuse everybody else and bully them.
Oh, abusing people is wrong. Taking their money, I feel like taking money against people's will. I think that might be considered abuse. Hmm. Putting people in cages for smoking dope. Yeah, that's probably abuse. Bombing people in other countries. You can look this up. Children in foreign countries that America have bombed have PTSD from clear blue skies because uh, that's the perfect conditions for the U.S. drone strikes. So yeah, maybe you're enabling and supporting and in love with the abuse, not against it.
And this is the history of mankind. If there's one thing you learn from the history of mankind, is that
This is all critics of libertarianism have of the free market. They say, well, I have these crazy hypotheticals that have nothing to do with reality, so deal with that. And I'm like, well, the government's doing these bad things right now. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Nothing's perfect. We all make mistakes.
mankind is a highly social species that creates syndicates in ever larger hierarchies, which then go on
Which you support.
to um, monopolize and to
Monopolizing is bad? Oh, only having one firm in charge of a given industry is bad? Gee, what if we had one industry that monopolized security and you could only do security at the behest of that group and we'll call it government? Oh, yeah, I don't want to hear the monopoly criticism from people that are in love with government. Like, it's
bully
stupid.
everybody else until eventually they dominate the entire field if they're allowed to. And this, by the way, is exactly how government was created in the first place. Where did government come from? You see, here's the whole absurdity of libertarianism is that libertarianism draws a very sharp dualistic line between the private sector and the public sector as if these two things are unrelated or inherently different. They aren't.
Aren't you? That's why you're drawing a line. That's why you're saying, hey, this free market stuff is crazy and extreme. So you're drawing the same line.
The way that the public sector came about at all in the first place, because it didn't exist at some point. Like 100,000 years ago, it didn't exist. There were no states and governments 100,000 years ago. There were only little villages and tribes. Um, but what happened is, like I said, these villages and tribes they came together, they unified because it gave them a survival advantage. They kept doing that at higher and higher orders. Mafias, syndicates were built, city
Oh,
states were built, city states combined together into nation states, nation states.
people getting together does not equal government. Churches are not governments, and yet they are people getting together. No, however much you dislike or like religion, that's not government. I have a group of friends. Sometimes we don't go out to eat. We're not a government, right? Government is not just a group of people. There's lots of group of people I don't consider government, right? Target, Walmart, any McDonald's. These companies are made up of people. They're not governments. You know why? Because that people choose whether or not to eat at McDonald's. People choose whether they get where they get groceries from. And if they don't get groceries, if they don't pay for the groceries, they don't get the groceries. But with government, it's here, you get the service, and if you don't want to pay for it, too bad, I'll shoot you. Instead of the other way it should be, where if you pay for the service, you get the service. Instead, it's you get the service and you have to pay for it. You see the issue there, right? You notice how those are not the same thing at all, and you need a different concept to consume the two? Because one is totally legitimate and makes your life better, is it's them uh, rationally trying to convince you to buy something, and the other one is saying, "Hey, you better give me your money, or you're gonna go to jail." Hmm. These people are different.
combined together into big treaties and international alliances like NATO and so on.
It's
Um,
gay and lame.
the Axis and Allies powers in World War II, so forth. So, and then um, all of this, all of this occurred, and then we got. This is how we got the state government.
How does that come from the free market? What? There used to not be government, and now there is. So free markets are bad. It's stupid because they actually led to. No, one society can change to another society because the philosophers, the people who determine the way that people act for the most part in any given society, can change arguments, right? People listen to, there's Plato and Aristotle. Aristotle's like, dang, this world is cool and I love this world. And Plato's all like, nah, this world is gay and lame. And there's actually a real world out there called the world of forms. And he won that battle, culturally speaking. He was wrong. And so Christianity ran with that idea. This world sucks. And for a long time until Christianity kind of changed, thanks to Thomas Aquinas and Aristotle came back. That's one example of how uh, what determines society is the philosophers of the day. It's not this sort of like, well, it has these little, we have these little tribes and then syndicates and then no, no, no. People have ideas and then those ideas blossom into whatever they're going to be, good or bad.
Various levels of state government. It came from the private sector. Initially, it was private. In essence, what happened was that it wasn't called a corporation back then, but some group of marauders came together. They created a syndicate, which is effectively a corporation without the legal paperwork. They created a syndicate. This syndicate was like a corporation, private corporation, and it started taking over more and more land, more and more territory, more and more tribes and people.
Okay. I have no idea what he means by syndicate in this case. Usually syndicates are implied to be evil, so I assume it's probably more like government, but it doesn't matter. Either the syndicate was voluntarily buying up land and convincing people through reason why they should why they should sell their land to them, or they're going around doing it like with guns. If they're doing it through reason, that's totally legitimate and not evil at all, and there's nothing to be upset about it. If they're doing it with guns, it's horrible and evil, and is the thing that he supports. So I don't know. It's stupid.
And then that was a tyranny. That corporation or that syndicate turned into a tyranny.
The idea that we really need government because without government, and a government might pop up is like saying, every day I go and I hit my arm really hard against something hard, so I get a big bruise on my elbow because if there's already a big bruise there, another bruise isn't going to form there because there's already a bruise there. It's like your issue is you don't want a bruise, and so you're going to go bruise your arm. That's retarded. Now this is just as retarded and embarrassing. Grown people should not believe these things.
Tyranny, an authoritarian dictatorship. And then through thousands of years of public pleading and protests and revolutions, what happened was that our ancestors fought with these private syndicates to seize power away from them because the power was centralized in an authoritarian pyramid-like structure. All the power went to the king or to the mob boss of that syndicate.
Libertarians do not believe in kings. Oh, the issue is that power, you can't have power concentrated in just a king. Instead, it needs to be a king that's chosen by popular vote, which is what I assume he supports. But who knows? What his form of government, specific form of government, doesn't matter. King or democracy, it's both stupid and will make your life far worse and does make your life far worse. You are far poorer. Society is far less efficient, and we are living much shorter lives because how much they have trampled and stopped humanity from progressing. And yes, these are in the form of kings and stuff. The kings are a form of government. You might not like that form of government, but that's not on our team. As a libertarian, I don't like kings. Any libertarian who says they do isn't a libertarian. They're a fiat libertarian at best. Libertarian in name only.
Those people were overthrown, and eventually democratic norms started to take hold, and we got the right to vote. And now it was no longer
You got the right. Oh, so rights are just so right is a moral term. Okay. Um, and you're saying that morality is determined by society? Hmm. I don't, it's gonna have a pretty hard time making the claim that libertarianism is bad. Uh, if your view of morality is merely just dictated by society, because as soon as I win and I convince enough people to have libertarianism, it's only a matter of time. But uh, we'll have libertarianism, and he's going to be moping around really sad because he can't argue against it. Because hey, man, people have the right to be free. Anyways, the point is, rights don't come from the government. They exist independent of the government. And by the way, the right to vote doesn't exist. It's retarded. Democracy is evil and bad. Mob rule is bad. Um, one person raping another person is bad. If it's a gang rape, it's not better, right? Which is to be the implication of the view that a majority of people believing something makes it true. No, the majority of people believing it just makes it the norm in society, like I said earlier, independent of whether the idea is good or bad or whatever.
tenable
Start.
for some one guy at the top to call all the shots for his lifetime. Now he had to actually take into consideration the needs of the, the citizens and the elites and the legislatures and so forth. This is the history, basically, of Western Europe over the last 2,000 years. Until we got to the point where we got a solid democracy going, which is what most of Europe and America is these days.
Okay, I'm going to explain why democracy is trash. Democracy, besides the fact that morality isn't dictated by a majority rule, which should be obvious to anybody above the age of 6.5, I would think. So when you have, so let's say you have one king, and he's the one who's in charge of the government. Now everybody sees him as the enemy he is. At least a lot easier because they're able to go, oh yeah, that guy's the guy who comes and taxes and stuff. Too bad we need him. Which is wrong, but in democracy, people are tricked into thinking that they are the government. No, we are the government. Now, what's one of the issues with thinking we are the government? Well, it justifies killing the populace more. This wasn't as commonplace under kings and stuff because people recognize that people under kings were mere citizens. They don't make up the king's government. But this is not the case under democracy. Under democracy, things like for instance like 9/11. Part of the justification behind 9/11 was that we are a democracy. We voted for this. Now, of course, Osama bin Laden was horribly wrong and evil for that, but he was drawing from our framework, which is when you have a bad framework that that puts you into a tricky situation. Because like, hey, those people are the government, and the government was going over there and attacking people in these Middle Eastern countries, and so we're just getting back at the people, or which is synonymous with the government. Now they are not synonymous, but people think they are, which means that the government's able to do more grotesque things. It's like if you said, me and my boyfriend are the same. We are together. We are the same. But your abuser beating you, and so you think, well, I'm beating myself really, which is what people do with taxes. They defend taxes on the ground that, like, oh, really? It's kind of like my own thing. I'm paying for, and we really are the government, and so you end up tricking yourself into thinking that a thing that is absolutely a crime and they are stealing from you, into thinking, oh, it's just we all decide it, through this, blah blah. Another issue with democracy is because that everybody gets a vote, and people have different interests or different things that they want. Instead of in a free market where go to the grocery store and if you want almond milk instead of whole milk, you just go and grab it off the shelf. There's no issue. There's no conflict. But instead with government, it's like, well, I want society to be ran this way, and the other people are like, I want society to be ran this way, and so they fight. Well, instead, in a capitalist society, which is far more individualist, people just go and choose what's best for them. We don't have to fight over which milk's the best or whatever. We might argue about it over line, but there's far less contention because at the end of the day, people can buy the milk that they want for their life. It's not decided on a country level. So that's another issue with democracy is that you have people fighting to get more and more for themselves. You have the old people fighting for Social Security. You have the young people fighting for freeing Palestine or whatever and gay stuff. And people clash a lot more than they otherwise would if society was just individuals and not the collectivist, communist-esque garbage that we have today.
Pretty solid democracy where we elect leaders, term limits, all this sorts of stuff. So see, what happened was
It's really not too bad because that our dictator, that steals and murders people in foreign countries. every 4 years he gets to switch it out for a different, pedophile. So it's not so bad. Oh, great. No, also, here's another issue. Term limits incentivize bad behaviors, like versus like a king. And remember, I hate monarchy. I'm not defending monarchy, but there's arguments to be made that monarchy is better than democracy, at least in some senses. Okay? I'm not sure if it's better as a whole, but there's an argument to be made. If you a king, since he's in charge his entire life and passes it down usually to somebody he loves, such as his firstborn son, he has an incentive not totally, screw over uh, his society. But if you're only in office for 4 years and the next guy that's going to come in is somebody that you hate, right? Or likely will hate because they're going to be of the opposite party, you're going to do as much as possible to in the short term make you look good, such as spending a bunch of money you don't have, and then leave that debt for the next person. And so it's just one guy after another screwing over the country as much as possible, right? Because the next guy's coming in, you got to screw him over, and you see this like the Trump and Biden, where they spent much money that we just literally don't have. We don't have that money. It doesn't exist, right? And so it has to be just printed into thin air, which makes us all poor because it inflates the currency, makes your purchasing power go down. You are poor because of the decisions that Trump and Biden have made. Now, that not sure, people have free will, but people are far less incentive to do that when they're in for life, and the next person is going to be in is somebody they usually love. So the whole term, oh, we have term limits. Doesn't it make us so civilized? Doesn't it make our criminals in DC so civilized? No, it just gives them even worse incentives than they already had. So no, that's not an improvement.
Here's what libertarians don't understand is that we started with a free market. We started with a true free market, but that was
Free markets generally, I mean, I'm sure at some point, because governments have always existed, but we've had freer markets. But remember, important to keep in mind today that there are very corrupt, evil things that businesses do today. Do. But this is enabled or straight up promoted by government, right? Like you hear these businesses that get a bunch of government subsidies, right? Like for instance, corn is heavily subsidized by the government. So the government is literally stealing money from you and then spending on corn. And corn isn't that great for you, right? This is why corn syrup's in everything. Corn syrup's not amazing for you. It's bad for you, from what I've heard. Okay, well, that's not corn farmers' fault. I mean, kind of is because they support it, but that's the government's fault for stealing money from you. So, to the degree that businesses are bad today, it's not because it's because that they're like quasi businesses. It's like they're tentacles of the state. Some of them are to some degree, and untangling that's very difficult. But that's not the free market's fault. That's the government's fault for being evil and putting their hands in everything.
so horrible that over time the free market was monopolized and dominated by a few
One of the biggest reasons that there's been more monopolies in the free market, well, the non-free market, I should say, is because the government gives out little patent slips. I'm pretty sure they used to be called monopoly grants, called intellectual property, copyright law. For instance, if I made a Disney cartoon today, Disney would come and sue me. They would sue me. They would steal money from me for making a cartoon, right? Originally the premise behind it was, well, we want to have certain companies have monopolies because it'll help them in the short term, right? They literally called it monopoly grants. I'm fairly certain of this, but yeah, anything I say, feel free to look up, right? We have an entire library of Alexandria times, 10 million, on your phone. So go ahead and fact check anything I say. Um, but over time, people pretended that it was the same as property rights. And so now we have businesses like, for instance, people go, "Oh my gosh, aren't businesses so evil because you're not allowed to, it's so hard to get insulin." It is really expensive to get insulin, even though it's cheap to make. You know why? It's because only 6 companies are allowed to make it, and they have a cartel. They have an insulin cartel. If anybody else makes insulin, they will get thrown in a cage. And what happens if you get thrown in a cage? According to the government, you get shot, right? So other people aren't allowed to make insulin. You're literally not allowed to. That is the government's fault, right? When you have a faulty view of reality, of the world, that has consequences. That has a cost on your life.
ruthless and bloody syndicates, which then turned into dictatorships and monarchies, which later were then revolutionized and smoothened out and kind of mollified because that too was so brutal and evil that didn't work. So we had to take power back from the
How could one society, so again, how is one society supposed to be more brutal and evil than another if people are by their nature are brutal and evil? Like,
top of the
I kind of explained reason why, where you have like a concentration of these evil people in specific positions of authority, but that's what he supports. So, I don't know.
monopoly and distribute it back down to the people, which made life better for most people. Raised their living conditions, made them less oppressed. Now the king couldn't just, willy nilly execute somebody. He had to
You don't have to redistribute wealth if people get to keep their own damn money in the first place, do you?
ask a court.
Uh, here's my idea of social justice. I keep what I earn, you keep what you earn. If you want money to move around, you trade it. You know, but instead it's like no, the government has to take it and redistribute it and blah 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 and help the poor. It's retarded. Oh no, I have messed up my audio somehow. Oh, well, he was just finishing there. I'm not sure he says
Raised their
anything
living
else.
conditions, made them less oppressed. Now the king
No, what raised people's living conditions is capitalism, in a large part, gasoline, the use and invention of gasoline. Because people are, think about all the things that use gasoline and electricity. Your life is far better. That's no thanks to government, right? Government only inhibits those things. They tax them to death and then they monopolize them. Like for instance, most houses, only one or two companies can transfer electricity there, so you have to pay those companies specifically, right? Because it makes things more efficient, right? Now, why don't we just figure out what would be most efficient, which is what you do in the free market, right?
couldn't just, willy nilly execute somebody. He had to ask a court. There has to be a crime. It has to be proven in court. This sort
This is especially funny because I understand that he's talking in, right, this is a few years old, I assume. But it's especially funny to hear him talk about like, oh, they have this rule of law and you have to go to the court, blah blah. And like recently, like ICE is just grabbing people and sending them across to the other country with no due process. And people, the vice president of the United States, JD Vance, is literally saying stuff like, they have absolute immunity. It's like, oh, I'm so glad we live in a free democracy where, come on, dude. These people are tyrants.
of stuff.
And they'd be tyrants even if they did go by the book, because the books are illegitimate. Because morality, the morality, and specifically the area of morality we're discussing, law, the area of ethics that deals with conflicts, how man should deal with other men, with in terms of force or not. That's not dictated by government, so I don't really care if they're doing it by the books, right? This is much higher. This is an objective relationship between you as an individual and reality is what you should do. It's not contingent on, whatever the retards down in DC imagine. They're stupid. And a lot of them are pedophiles, by the way. A lot of them. Trump was talking about, Epstein's you gotta get the Epstein line client list, and it's all horrible and bad, and now he's like, oh, why was it? No, it's a progressive hoax. So either way, he's a liar, right? And come on, do I really have to explain why Joe Biden, Mr. Child Sniffer, is a pedophile, right? And that's just the two last presidents. Okay. So that's the end of it. Like I said, this video will be linked in the description. I've gone through the full thing, so unless if you just, it really matters if it's uninterrupted to you, you'll get the whole thing here. If you're interested in learning more about libertarianism, what libertarians actually believe, and the fact that they are right, well, the ones that are, consistent and not a libertarian name only, I will be doing a stream next week while I play Minecraft where I talk about libertarianism and I answer your questions or comments. You can make any arguments, any comments. All I ask you is that make them separate. Don't just give me these long paragraphs of text. I don't want that. Give me bullet point 1. Libertarianism hates gays. I don't know. I don't care. Point is, make your arguments different. You can even put them in one comment. Just make sure they're separate things so I can respond to one thing, respond to the next thing. So I don't get, so it's easiest to get to them. And if it takes a lot of words, I understand, but use as least amount of words as possible. And then also, so you can do that in the comments of this video, or if you're really cool, you can do it in this video. And I have a post that I put up last week, so it's kind of old and it's technically not accurate, but or I have another post. I have just like a post. It's not like a video on YouTube where you can also do the same thing. So post your questions about libertarianism. Um, I'll explain it. What is libertarianism? What do libertarians actually believe? Where does it come from? Blah, blah, blah. Where you can learn about the true political philosophy that is actually the rejection of politics, because politics is evil It's gain lame, as the cool kids would say. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this was insightful and you learned a lot between my insults. And yeah, Tucker. This is Tucker Marler signing out.